Yes, welcome, welcome, welcome for this very special last event here in the main stage. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Data Future Lab Showcase, the DFL Showcase, where we celebrate local innovators from around the globe who are developing data tools and platforms that prioritize the needs and interests of their communities. Because in this fast-paced world of AI and data, the popular discourse and priorities are often set by a small but vocal minority. And through the DFL Showcase, Mozilla aims to highlight and support a more inclusive and global perspective on data futures. And the goal is to bring together dedicated funders who are ready to prioritize and invest in these diverse futures. So we have an exciting and full lineup ahead. And to kick us off, I would like to invite Mark Surman, president of the Mozilla Foundation, to the stage to open it up.
Welcome. This day has been like years in the making. I remember before the pandemic, we had this idea of a data futures lab, and Chimpika and Miguel and many others have come to build this, and then I'm so excited to hear these projects. And the idea always was that, if we want to build whatever you want to call it, trustworthy AI or technology that is in service of us as people, that you need to actually support, nurture, resource, connect the people who are really going to build it. And that's what the Data Futures Lab is about. It is people who are building the underpinnings of the technology, putting together data, using data in a way that is for communities, that is shaped by communities, that is solving real problems. And why we set up the Data Futures Lab was, in order to do that, it takes resources. You can't just do it. I mean, you can start on your own, but you can't do it and really get where you want to go without resources. And, if you think about who's making a negative version of the data economy, at least in my view, somebody like Google, somebody like Facebook, the resources they have are immense. They're just tremendous. And those resources not only allow them to kind of vacuum up all the data they, choose to vacuum up, but also to try things, to fail, to get different people around the table. And that's why they're able to grow what they're doing, because they have the resources to do that. And so what the Data Futures Lab does, what Mozilla does, is give seed grants to help people who are trying to use data in better ways, trying to use data to empower people. And that's one part of the resource picture. But of course, it's not the only part. Like in that Google example, you need people, you need expertise, you need the data, you need the desire to do something different. And so, that's where you all come in. What you're going to hear today is a set of projects that are using data, building technology, building towards AI in really compelling, important, transformative ways. And those people need more than our seed grants and more than what they have themselves. They need, expertise, resources that actually, if you look to the person beside you, or you look in yourself, you might have. And so one of the things you're going to hear today is not just a set of compelling projects, but each of the people who are going to present are going to have a little bit of an ask for you about what resources do they need? Where could they use help? And so the ask today is listen, I think you're going to be inspired, but also, think about, do you have something to offer? Because that's what the Data Futures Lab is about. That's what the Mozilla community is about, and that is what MozFest is about. So thanks for joining us. My colleague and actually co-professor, Miguel, who teaches a course with me, is going to come up here and tell you more.
Can you hear me? Okay, I'm sorry. This mic is awesome. Thanks, Mark. My name is Miguel Bonachimo, and I'm a program officer at the Data Futures Lab, and I'm really excited to be here with you on the last day of MozFest and see this energy. So over the next hour together, you're going to meet 4 brave souls who are going to get up on this stage, and in only 5 minutes, they tell us about what they're building. They are going to compress all their research and development in this short amount of time, I'm going to present to you and to our panel of technologists, funders, researchers who are going to be providing feedback after each presentation. So if any of you are familiar with Shark Tank, the pitch competition, it's good that you're familiar because this is completely the opposite idea. We're hoping to create a more welcoming space, a space more open to diversity, new ideas, and encouraging a space for innovation. So we're excited to hear from our panel and about their insights, but we also want to hear from you. In the true spirits of MozFest, you're going to have the chance to vote on your favorite pitch, your favorite presentation, and the winner will take a prize home. I'll tell you more about that. You'll see instructions to vote with your cell phones. There's not much to happen there. We'll see a QR and a link. And the winner will get the chance to present at our flagship MozFest Global convening next year with all expenses paid by Mozilla. So I think that's awesome, right? So I would love for our panelists to introduce themselves. So if you, starting with Aya maybe, can tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi, I'm Aya Bder. I'm an entrepreneur and a technologist, and I have been involved in open source for a very long time through hardware mainly. I work with Mozilla doing AI strategy and doing collaborations with leading open source AI innovators.
Hi everyone, I'm E.M. Lewis-Jong and I'm the director for Common Voice, which for those of you who don't know, though I feel like I've talked to everyone about Common Voice so far, is a crowdsourcing platform for diverse speech data.
I think this works, yeah. Hi all, I'm Saskia Lensink. I'm a linguist and I work in computational linguistics, aka large language models at the moment at TNO. It's an applied research organization here in the Netherlands.
Hi, I'm David Manzano. I'm coming from Spain. I'm an AI specialist and engineer, and I'm responsible for leading engineering in Mozilla AI.
Awesome. Let's give a round of applause to our panelists, please. So, remember, it takes a lot of courage to get here and present the project. So please, let's be kind to our presenters, and let's welcome them with the true love that the MozFest community has to offer, right? Is everybody on board with this idea? Yeah. Okay. So first project, we're going to hear from a team that has been auditing popular large data sets and highlighted the widespread lack of transparency around where this data is coming from. So let's welcome to the stage Shayne Longpre from the Data Provenance Initiative.
Awesome. Thank you, Miguel. Oh, cool. Picture of me. Hello, everyone. I'm Shayne. I'm a third-year PhD student at MIT, and I'm here to convince you that data consent on the web is broken. But not only is it broken, there's been a tremendous backlash, especially in the last year, revoking consent to data across the web in a truly significant way, not just for AI companies, but for academics and researchers just like myself. So how do I know this? I run an initiative called the Data Provenance Initiative. We are a grassroots volunteer collective of academics from first-year undergrads to senior professors, legal professionals, nonprofit, civil society members. We've grown to about 60 people in a year and a half and span 15 different countries. And the one thing that unites us is we are extremely intensely passionate about audits, specifically auditing AI systems and the underlying data beneath them. So let me set the scene a little bit. There is a massive arms race for AI training data, and it's leaving data creators without credit, without consent, and without compensation. But you probably already know this. But what we don't know yet is how are the norms of the web shifting in response to this sudden change. This research is half a week old after months of doing it, so just in time for you. And we essentially did a massive audit of the huge data sets that underlie the main language models like ChatGPT. We sampled tens of thousands of web domains like NewYorkTimes.com, Reddit.com, YouTube.com, and many other more obscure ones. And we manually audited that across dozens of people from around the world for several signals around consent and preferences to have your data used, as well as other things. So the terms of service of a web domain, as well as the robots.txt, which is a machine-readable indication of what agents or crawlers can use your web data and how, as well as other things like whether user content is on the website, whether there's sensitive content, paywalls, ads, and many dozen other things. I personally annotated about 1,000 websites, and I can tell you it's a wild ride. We're looking for more contributors, but you'll see a lot about what goes into AI models and what's out there. So to cut to the results, what we found truly surprised us, and we think denotes a paradigm shift in consent signals and preferences across the whole web. And what we saw is, starting in 2016, but a massive uptick in 2023 of that red area that represents full restrictions across a series of both AI companies and nonprofits and academic crawlers that say you're not allowed to take that data or use it in any way or severely restrict it. By company, this is on a log scale over time again, we see a huge uptick again in 2023, and this is by company. We see OpenAI, 20% of the tokens in the head of this distribution are fully restricted, not allowed to be crawled by OpenAI, followed by Anthropic, Common Crawl, Google, and further down the list, Meta and Cohere. Now, there's no real rhyme or reason why some companies are more restricted than others. I honestly think it's because of a lack of awareness, confusion, like uncertainty in how to sort of try to signal your preferences across now hundreds of AI companies. But what about the terms of service? So this is a way you can, in human writing, explain what you're seeing or what you want intentions of your data, and we find that for the first time, that red area there around 2023, our companies are explicitly asking that people not train their data, not use their data for AI. But there's a range of other clauses around non-commercial use or non-compete, no redistribution, conditional use that's trying to split the difference and allow it so this data can be crawled by search engines, maybe by academics, but not for certain AI companies or competitors. Altogether, we are seeing a huge change in the composition and structure of consent on the web, and this is going to have tremendous ramifications cascading into different industries, copyright, and how we can use and build technologies or research the web in the future. This is probably my most provocative slide and research finding. So we decided to compare how real users are using ChatGPT right now. There's samples of that online, estimates, and compared to how websites are used that are the underlying basis of AI models. And we find that there's a huge mismatch between these uses. There's a new common refrain or joke that says we expected that AI would do our work for us so we could be artistic and creative, but it turns out it's the other way around. The number two uses of AI are creative composition and sexual role play, whereas news is at the very bottom of those uses in our sample, as compared to news or encyclopedias, which are the underlying foundation of what the models are trained on. This will have ramifications potentially for journalism, for copyright, and other things, and we think it deserves to be studied more. I'll wrap up by saying, to solve these problems, we need to really understand them and where they're going, and the Data Provenance Initiative are some of the few doing massive scale audits of the web. So we appreciate your support and for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Shayne. Now it's time to hear from our panelists, and we begin with Aya.
Thank you so much, Shayne, for the presentation. I love this project because I think it's extremely important. It's really timely, and for a lot of people, it's very personal. Data gets talked about as if it's this sort of big word, this buzzword that, every day you open the news and it's like AI companies want more data. Everybody's trying to buy data, make data. But for us as human beings, as consumers, as citizens, the data represents who we are. And I think that you're kind of giving data the respect that it deserves. I think that I love that you're having a very interdisciplinary approach. The first thing that you said is a really important opening in your presentation, that you have academics, you have researchers, you have scientists, you have computer scientists all working on, lawyers working on this problem. It's a really it's a really interdisciplinary problem. I'd love for you to talk about a bit, have you experienced this sort of criticism that the work that you're doing is making progress hard, or is making AI companies work harder? You're sort of preventing sort of more advancement and progress. Have you heard that? And if so, how do you respond to it? Because it's something I imagine they're potentially weaponizing, even though the work is very important.
Yeah, that's a great point. This is a very provocative and controversial issue. We're very careful not to prescribe a future, but transparency and I'm going to say journalism can be controversial if it exposes some hard truths for various people. And yeah.
I mean, I would say the work that you're doing is important enough that these accusations are trying to prevent it because it's important. I also maybe if you could say a couple of words about how this kind of handmade process that you're going through, but also doing it at scale. How are you managing both the sort of very manual, one-to-one kind of analysis and audit process, but also doing it at scale? And how do you imagine, with help from people in this room and others, being able to grow that even further?
Just a lot of auditing nerds and people who are really passionate about doing this and getting their hands dirty. And providing resources and tools and expertise. We've benefited so much from the interdisciplinary nature and lawyers and people who do computational social sciences and understand what we need to be looking for in websites and real chat logs to understand the dynamics and changes. And so really just your expertise. We accept volunteers and all of the above. So.
Thank you. Great initiative, and I'm very happy to see that these types of voluntary research is being done at the moment at a larger scale. And I really want our team to join you in your efforts, because we're developing a large language model, and we set ourselves this aim that we're only going to do it in a lawful way, which means that data provenance is key. Just a question for you. You mentioned the robots.txt texts. Do you have any insights in how many times this is actually respected?
Oh, that's a very hard question. There are many things some people could comment on that. I'll say that some companies say they respect it, and for the most part probably do. There's good reasons to. It's not legally enforceable. This is a best practice, responsibility, ethical question sometimes as well. But there's definitely evidence that other companies maybe don't respect it as much. And that's an issue we need to put more work into understanding.
So should regulatory frameworks take this into account and start looking at those types of ways to protect your data?
In some cases, yes. Maybe we'd have a longer conversation about that, because I think it gets very complicated, and it's not the same for every website or every application of AI, and there's a lot of nuance there to be looked at. Like if you're developing a language model for certain purposes, university, with your own best practices and responsible thinking, that's different from commercial uses and high risk and sensitive uses. So there's so many things that need to be thought about.
Yeah, so a risk-based approach, basically.
Part of it, yeah.
So we have the AI Act, who might be interesting. Just one quick question. I see we're running out of time, but I'm just so super curious. Just to look back at your graph where you said that most of the uses for ChatGPT are mostly, sexual role-playing, and helping you with creative processes, and it's mostly based on news items. To what extent is that worrying? Because imagine if it was the other way around and we were mainly using it for news generation.
Yes, there are lots of implications, and I'm going to give up the time and maybe talk about it offline because I'd love to, but that's a complicated thing. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thanks to our panelists. Thank you, Shayne. So the Data Provenance Initiative just highlighted some surprising and disconcerting insights about how these large data sets are fueling AI. So what can we do? Our next project, Spawning, is attempting to address some of these issues from the perspective of creators by building a suite of tools that give data rights holders a control and a say if they want to be a part of a data set or not. So to tell us more about that, let's meet Cullen Miller from Spawning.
Hi, my name is Cullen, and I'm here doing some policy work for Spawning. Spawning is an organization building data governance solutions for generative AI. Okay, so the volume of web-scale data necessary for training these models has introduced some unprecedented challenges for intellectual property and data governance. I think we all understand that. The traditional methods of dataset governance are quite haphazard and categorically neglect the consent of the content providers. This indiscriminate scraping forces developers to rely on undocumented pools of data with unknown licensing and permissions. So our answer to this problem was to build a multi-utility piece of infrastructure that provided artists, publishers, rights holders, tools to manage their IP in training data sets, while simultaneously streamlining model training workflows, ensuring access to clean, clearly licensed data, providing a legible solution for compliance with the emerging EU regulations. So we did this by building what we're calling the Do Not Train tool suite, which is a system that provides machine-readable opt-outs to streamline the process for rights holders to express their data preferences, as well as model trainers to acknowledge and respect them. So we launched with a tool called HaveIBeenTrained.com, which is a multimodal search engine for public data sets that indexes and identifies user data in these data sets. It allows users to add their works to the Do Not Train registry by either selecting individual works or by opting out their entire domains. We currently have over 2.4 billion independent registrations. So the next component of the Do Not Train tool suite is AI.text, following on the great presentation that Shayne just gave. It is also a machine-readable signal to web crawlers specifying which data they can and cannot use at the domain level. Unlike robots.txt, AI.text can apply permissions to data that has already been crawled and compiled into data sets. And it can be referenced at the time of training rather than just at the crawling stage. And this is done by checking with the third component of the Do Not Train tool suite, which is Spawning's API. So the API's functionality is twofold. For sites that host user-generated content, our API allows their users to register their data and these associated preferences in the Do Not Train registry. And secondly, it provides a service for model trainers to easily comply with rights holders' opt-out requests. Our API is currently integrated into Hugging Face, so all the data sets that are downloaded from Hugging Face can easily remove any Do Not Train data prior to training. These Do Not Train assertions provide the foundation for establishing opt-out preferences, while our new product, Source Plus, extends those permissions beyond opt-out, and it enables creators to configure more permissive uses with conditions, licensing, attribution, provenance, and remuneration all built in. So Source Plus currently hosts 40 million public domain and CC0 licensed images. We are in early limited access right now. It also allows the users to create collections of subcategories by searching and indexing this enriched data based on licensing, content type, content subjects, to construct data sets from first principles so that model trainers can train safely and responsibly. The communities that we're building for are here. AI developers, if they're using our services, get pipeline-native tools that inform them what they should not be training on. They get a marketplace where they can easily search and acquire data sets with specific licenses that match their organization's data usage policies. So smaller AI companies and researchers without massive legal teams get a really simple way just to comply with text and data mining regulations and data owners' permissions and preferences. Creatives and rights holders get the ability to specify how their data can be used during training. For creatives that want to leverage AI tools for their own practice, but have been reticent to do so due to poor data practices, now have a tool to build data sets permissively, built off of permissively licensed works for fine-tuning their own models and based off of commons-based data. They also get a tool that enriches their data for optimal training, providing grounds for licensing deals and remuneration. Data platforms get a technical solution for their users to add their data to the Do Not Train registry when their users bring their data to their platform, and regulators get a canonical registry to check against for model trainer compliance. Okay, I'll breeze through this last bit. So our products aim to fill in some critical gaps in the current data economy where rights holders and model trainers operate under conflicting and unclear terms. The Do Not Train tool suite provides the foundation for building data sets from the best practices from the ground up. And building on this foundation, Source Plus creates a marketplace for consent-based data exchange. And here the data is not only sourced with known provenance and verified integrity, but is also compliant with EU TDM regulations. So through these tools, we're trying to provide a scaffolding for a new economic model where clean, quality data is integral and not just optional. This is our team. I'll flash through that, unfortunately. And some of the support that we're looking for, we're looking for some support with this. Thank you. I'm out of time on this, so I'm trying to be time sensitive. Okay. Thanks.
We begin our round of panelist commentators with David.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It has been really interesting. I see real value in this project because it comes to propose a solution for both the content creators that want to be sure that the content is not used without consent. And on the other side, it's making easier in a way the training models, being sure that you're not using any content that you are not allowed to do it. So in that sense, I find the space really interesting, by the way. I see a lot of value on what you said, that it's connected to something that this is really popular, like Hugging Face is. So basically, providing a tool that lets any developer to go there and to check if there is any content that is, again, not allowed to be used or whatever. So at the end, it's bringing support there. So basically, you can feel more comfortable. I am a developer, so it's a tool that I see a lot of value in it. And finally, this concept of that I really like it to make things simpler. So basically, exposing an API that you can connect with another service to basically check these things in an easy ways, and another added value that I see on this. Just to conclude a question, I don't know if you have the number, if you can comment, how many infringements have been found using this service so far? If it's really a common problem that we have in the open data sets, or it's something that it's becoming common these days for whatever the reason?
So this is something that we would really like to involve the public authorities with. So this registration that we're doing, ultimately we are underqualified, totally transparent about that, and we think that the public authorities need to be involved because in how complex identity and digital identity are. While we don't have access to all of the copyrighted works in the world, it's kind of hard for us to know about that. But yeah, I think it's safe to say a lot in very unempirical terms. But Yeah, so I can't give you any specifics on that, but I think particularly as the ink on the AI Act dries and the conversations develop with the European regulations for text and data mining and the exceptions for opt-out, we will have a lot more information on that as we get more rights holders, partners.
Okay. Have more questions, but we can catch up offline. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next comments come from Aya.
Oh, I have. I want to. I really love this project, and one of the reasons is the same one that David mentioned, which is you're coming in with a solution as opposed to sort of just saying that this is a problem and kind of blocking these model builders and big data set builders, etc. I particularly like the angle on the creator economy, how sort of providing value back to the system, acknowledging the importance of being able to allow a way for creators to make money off their content and their data, allow developers to be able, data builders, etc., all these things. So maybe you could talk a bit about how you see that kind of flywheel working, because I think it's a piece of the story that comes through in the way you're talking and maybe could be kind of expanded in the deck a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you mentioned that too, because we wanted to work on that first, because that's all the fun stuff. We're going to make some really cool creative tools for this, but without kind of these primitives in place, we felt like we were missing a piece of the puzzle. But yeah, just to answer your question, that's the part we're really excited about too, is seeing the response that many artists rightfully had to AI. I think there's this knee-jerk response that AI is just bad, which maybe it is right now, and it is for them in many cases. So, we wanted to make sure that they were able to participate in this, because this is obviously the way that things are going, and that they could do this in a way that was equitable and fair and be able to generate revenue from their practices and the new economy that this is growing into. So, to answer the question about the flywheel, I would say in 15 seconds, we are looking at training some models for where users. So we're training a foundational model based off of this common corpus that we're going to use as like a fully consenting model based off of public domain and CC0 licensed images. We're also working on a music model as well. So artists will be able to bring their data to that, fine-tune that, and then even offer a model as a service type of licensing arrangements for people, and as well as just to be able to use this in their creative studio practices as well too, because I think a lot of artists have been very reticent to get involved with this, but this might give them a responsible grounding to actually get involved in this.
Thank you. That was great in 15 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you, Cullen. We just heard how Spawning is developing these defensive tools for creators. But what can builders, what can developers do in the case of using ethical data sets? So can they use data that doesn't come from real people? And what does that even mean? What are the risks? I would like to introduce Nataša Krčo from Imperial College London on stage to talk about how they're answering these questions. Nataša.
Thank you. Well, so my name is Nataša. I am a PhD student at the Computational Privacy Group at Imperial College London. And I am going to talk about our project, which is called Leaving No One Behind. And it is about implementing an open source tool to evaluate privacy risk in synthetic data. So I'm sure that you know that AI is becoming more popular, and therefore our data is becoming so much more useful. Everybody wants to use our data, and the problem there is we're actually not always sure what it's being used for, and we're not always sure if it's being used responsibly, if our privacy is being properly preserved. Something else that I'm sure you've heard of is the recent data breaches that have happened. And what a very important thing that this has shown us is that the current standard of preserving privacy, which is basically anonymization and data minimization, is not really enough anymore. And properly anonymized data is still not private, or not always private. And this is why researchers and industry experts have been turning to synthetic data. And so what synthetic data is the way it works is we take the real private data, we give it to a synthetic data generator, we train it, and then the generator spits out synthetic data. And the synthetic data is meant to preserve all of the statistical properties of the real data so that it's still useful and we can still make high-quality models or get high-quality analysis from it. But because all of the records are fake, they don't correspond to any real person, in theory, it should be private. In theory. And actually what we found is that this is great for protecting people on average. So somebody who has very average data, like close to the middle, probably their data is very difficult to leak. But statistical outliers, so those who have data that is different from others, that is, if you imagine the data as a little ball and then somebody who is over here, they are likely to be, or they're much more likely to be, to have their privacy compromised. And so what is very useful in these cases then are these tools to evaluate the actual privacy risk of releasing a synthetic data set. And what we want to do is implement an open source tool that is very easy to use and very easy to understand so that you can easily evaluate whether this synthetic data set is actually doing what you want it to be doing. And there we have attack-based evaluations, which is, so for example, say we want to train a medical model and we have this man named John and we want to check if his privacy is actually going to be preserved if we release a synthetic medical data set trained on his, among others, his data. And if it's actually very easy to infer that actually, yes, John was used to train this data, then what's the point of your synthetic data set? And you need to go back and figure out a better way to generate private synthetic data. And then the problem with these attacks is that they take quite a while to run and they take a lot of resources. So what else is useful is these fast, kind of cheap, easy methods to estimate more or less these are the records that are likely to be vulnerable and these are the records that you should pay special attention to. And we want to have a tool that unifies all of these state-of-the-art methods so that everything is kind of in one place and very easy to use. We would like this to help a very broad range of users. So first of all, researchers who work with very sensitive data, for example, medical data, you need very high quality data to build anything useful. But especially in the case, if you're using data about very rare diseases or it's something that people most likely will want to keep private. So you need something that preserves the privacy very well, but is still very useful. Again, for companies, they work with sensitive data, and especially with the AI Act and all of these data privacy regulations rising, this could help with compliance to regulations. And then NGOs, again, if they would like, for example, if an NGO has a data set full of sensitive data and they want to ask for help on research, they could, in theory, release a synthetic data set and get the help that they need. So our goal is we want this to be like a real privacy benchmark. We want to build a little community of researchers and industry experts around it so that we can always keep it up to date and really contribute to making it easy and making it the default to protect everybody's privacy properly. This is our team. So we're 4 PhD students and our boss. Our professor. And so if you use synthetic data or if you're thinking about using synthetic data and would like to tell us what would be most useful to you, please get in touch. If you're an expert in privacy and want to tell us this is something that you really need to implement, also contact us. We would love to hear from you. Thank you very much.
We begin a round of commentators with EM.
Hi. Thank you so much. And I know it's so nerve-wracking to be up there. You did such a great job. I love this for a lot of reasons. And I think one of them is that you've taken the premise that, good enough is not good enough, actually. And that is unusual, more unusual than it should be to say, oh, it's just a few people. A few people is not good enough. So I love that about the kind of central premise of what you're doing. My question for you is just, you named some of the sectors in which this can be particularly powerful, places like the healthcare sector, and it sounds like what you're working on right now is a kind of like an MVP tool, right? It's like a proof of concept. Do you have thoughts about how you might kind of productize this so that it can be deployed in those kinds of contexts? For example, like the NHS in the UK would be really interested, but they will want something quite fully fledged. So did you have thoughts about that product pathway?
Yes, I mean, we do want to include this as well in the very first product that we release. We want to have some sort of interface that you can kind of just input your data, because really the goal with this is that you don't have to be an AI expert or a privacy expert to use it. So we do want to have some sort of interface where you can say, here's my data, I want this, do it. And probably at the beginning it's going to be the much simpler methods, or it's going to be a very crude interface. But yeah, those are our thoughts so far. Have something in between the methods and the users to make it very understandable, very easy to use, and very understandable, like what is it actually doing. If that answers.
Yeah, no, that's great. But I'm sure lots of product people in the room would be delighted to spend time with you, because it's such a cool idea. So yeah, find us all afterwards.
Yes, please tell me if you have any thoughts. They are very welcome.
Thank you. And continue with David.
Thank you. I'm curious about that, but we can catch up offline as well. I was thinking. I mean, it's. I really like the idea on having something open source in this space, something that you would like to engage with a community to increase trust and usage and engagement from other people, and also something that is scientifically based in a way. So basically, because there is research behind that basically supports that this is working. So the three of them basically increase, it's a way to increase transparency, definitely, and something that is key, by the way, because in particular, I'm aware about the health sector, health industry, and how things are managed there, and it's really complicated to get real data, by the way. Mm-hmm. So having something that is really respectful with the privacy concerns, I think it's key. But you mentioned, just a question, you mentioned that the tool is going to be able to detect vulnerabilities into the data. At what level? It's at John level, that's this example that you use, or it's an item level, so perhaps it's included your phone number or your email address or whatever. At what level it's detected the vulnerabilities?
So in particular, the research that we have worked on, and I mean other researchers as well, recent research has showed that you can calculate the outliers and they are very likely to be quite vulnerable. So at least for the first iteration of it, it's going to be John, Jack, and Peter are probably going to be vulnerable, and this is how we estimate it. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Thanks to our panelists for the So far, we've been focusing on where data is sourced and how to do that more responsibly. But what about data that is not really represented in those large data sets? For our fourth project, we're going to take a step back and talk about data sets from the perspective of communities, and more specifically, indigenous language datasets. So I'd like to invite to the stage Michael Ronin-Wolf from First Language AI Reality.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And what I'm going to be talking to you about is language reclamation for indigenous languages while addressing systemic barriers to creating AI for these communities. So first, a little bit about myself. What you're looking at here is the largest teepee encampment in the world. And this happens every year in Montana, every August. And this is my wife's village in Abzalaga country, or the Crow Reservation. And I've always been interested in languages that I was growing up, and what you're seeing here is actually a map of the language families in North America. And so the largest language family is Algonquin, and it spans from the Rocky Mountains all the way to the East Coast and includes languages like Cheyenne, Blackfeet, Mohawk, Mohegan, other languages like that. And my research focuses upon the Wakassan languages here in the Northwest. And a thing to note about this is that the white areas are where language families no longer exist. Half the languages in the world of the 7,000 languages tracked by UNESCO, nearly 50%, over 50% thereabouts, depending upon who you ask, are endangered. In North America, anywhere between 70 and 90% of our languages are endangered. Most of them are critically endangered, where we may have only 5 to 10 years of speaking left. And so some of the barriers that we're doing to building this kind of AI is that indigenous languages in North America are not European, surprise. And they hold very little, actually, phonetically and morphologically, very little similarities to languages in Europe. And one of them is a concept called polysynthesis, which one of our speakers can probably talk to an extent, but I cannot talk to here. But the basic idea is that morphologically, indigenous languages in North America have an infinite amount of words and contain as much information as a phrase in English. Another barrier is our concern for our culture. We have faced centuries of cultural exploitation, and much of our material culture now sits in museums and locked away from us, including the winter count, which is a historical record for my family. And because for the safety of the item, it is being withheld by the Smithsonian, and we'll probably never have access to it ever again. Another barrier is, why haven't we researched indigenous languages using machine learning? It's simply because very few of us are computer scientists. If we're fortunate, 1 or 2 indigenous First Nations in Canada, Native Americans in the United States, and original peoples in Mexico, maybe only one of us per year graduate with a PhD or in a related field for computer science. And so we just don't have the talent. And number 2 is our communities are spread. What you're looking at is most of the language communities in Canada, and what you'll notice is that we're in the middle of nowhere for the most part in Canada. And it's a similar, the situation is also similar in the United States, where you're seeing communities spread geographically far and very difficult for us to collaborate given limited resources. And so what you end up with a situation where fundamentally the technology doesn't work for communities. We distrust traditional mechanisms for artificial intelligence, big data processes, and we don't have the talent, and it's penning in our ability to participate in the modern economy. So what do? You just do it. So my research is actually inspired by Maori researchers who built the first indigenous automatic speech recognition system, and they're called Tihiku. You at Mozilla are probably familiar with these, though. And I'm happy to count them as my mentors as we follow them technologically and follow their lead, and they provide technical assistance. And with them, following their lead in IP space for data sovereignty, and also work by biomedical data activists who are Native American, we're working and exploring the idea of creating data co-ops for cultural data. And we're also, to address the lack of talent within the AI space for indigenous communities, is we're teaching Lakota kids, which unfortunately I'm actually missing. We are on the 3rd day of the 3rd year of a successful program called the Lakota AI Code Camp, where we teach Lakota in a culturally contextual way, computer science, data science, and machine learning using industry standard tools like PyTorch, and Jupyter notebooks, and all based upon Docker and Linux technology. And so in this way, we have technology that integrates with the community, addresses cultural needs and the desire to protect our data, and we also have our own indigenous talent for our own selves. And the idea is to bridge communities with this technology, not use it as a barrier. And this initiative is called the First Languages AI Reality, and is in collaboration with Mila in Montreal and a 501c3 called Indigenious in the United States. Our team spans the continent, as you can see here, and the ultimate objective is to allow us, the communities, through this work, define our relationship with the modern age as we look into the future, and let us have agency over our own technological future and write our own narrative. For more information, you can go to firstlanguages.ai or follow the QR code. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
So we begin our round of comments with Saskia.
Thank you so much for this great pitch. And it's wonderful to see how you're actually making it a bit more concrete what it means to actually democratize AI and to make it accessible to everyone. So I was just wondering, there's a couple of questions I have, and the first one would be, if you look at low resource languages or even the ultra low resource, that's a new one I see popping up here and there, is that the question really becomes, to what extent is there any textual data that you can rely on, or is it just basically a lot of oral data that you're using at the moment? Because there's a lot of languages that don't have a standardized written form. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, and then kind of going back to your concept of low resource. And it's really a measure of your ratio of textual data to your oral data. And German is actually considered a low resource language compared to, say, English or French. And yes, some tribal communities do have extensive textual data, like the Hawaiian, Inuktitut in Canada, and the Cherokee. And that's because they had newspapers historically, and newspapers printed in their own languages. But that's an exception. For the most part, I guess 99% of our communities don't have large textual data sets. What does exist is usually like what's been transcribed in English, typically, or French, in the case of Quebec. And so we're having to go rely upon things that you may have remembered from your grad school days, and I'm not to age shame you, finite state transducers, traditional mechanisms of documenting the morphology. The key problem is really more about like what do we do about phonetics, and that's where the core of the research is focusing on, the lack of any kind of data, period. But there is documentary, anthropological descriptions of the morphology that we can use.
Yeah, really involve the community, I guess, to collect as much data as you can, potentially. I was wondering, to what extent are you also connected to other indigenous people around the world? For example, I know in Peru, there's a lot of initiatives focused on Quechua at the moment, and ASR solutions. I know the Sami are working on it together with some companies in Finland. So to what extent are you connected to those initiatives?
Unfortunately, there's not that many of us, so actually vary. There is some language divide, obviously. I've only recently made aware of research being done in the global south, and that's really just the language barrier. There is active research in South America that I've been tapping into, but we are working with communities like the Yamanawa, and we've had interest in communities working with us in New Zealand and in Australia, and of course Africa. There's not that many of us, unfortunately. There's not that many initiatives, and very little technology is being built. And so we have probably about a dozen tribal communities who want to work with us, but we're focused right now on building the core infrastructure. But yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I was just, as you were talking, I was just thinking, I'm so glad I don't have to vote because all of them were so good. Thank you. So this is an amazing project. My question was around, some of your focus is around the governance piece as well as the kind of data collection and technology piece. Can you speak a bit more about that? I mean, our experience at Common Voice is that can actually be one of the hardest things, like helping communities to decide how they want to make decisions, helping to create space for them to disagree productively. You mentioned co-ops and trusts, which are still reasonably nascent governance tools. So I would just love to hear more about how you're thinking about that.
Yeah, so our stance is that the communities should fundamentally own their own data. And so we are actually we've created and are in the process of finalizing a contract which basically says the data that we collect, either be it archival data or we collect it through our processes, is owned by the community. And we're licensing the data from the community, and furthermore, any further research, any artifacts with some minor limitations because of the nature of AI, will be retained with the community. We're giving them basically GDPR-like rights, so that we're giving them quarterly updates on what exactly we're doing with their data, and then we're also, if they want to opt out or retract their participation, we're promising with a legal document, doing our best not to put too much of the sword over our head, but saying that we're promising to get rid of the data from our systems with best effort. And I think that's critical. There's a lot of impractical goodwill towards indigenous data sovereignty, particularly in North America, but there's not very much actual practical on the ground. What does that mean exactly? And this may be the very first contract, licensing contract, that's been oriented toward this goal, because typically what happens is that communities work with institutions, and yes, big tech can be the big baddie, but it's very typically it's the research institutions. It's the Royal Museum of England, or it's the Montana State University, who has the largest amount of stolen data. It's not the big companies, the main companies, Meta, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, etc. And so we're encoding that. And in the future, as our data setting increases, I would like to pivot toward creating some sort of data trust or data co-op to, leverage the IP of this with the community's consent, of course, first and foremost.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. Thanks to our panelists for their comments. And now you've heard the 4 projects, and you heard the panelists. So it's the time to vote. I'm going to ask the question that you'll be asked to vote is, which of these projects you believe has the greatest potential to advance trustworthy AI? You can scan the QR code or follow the instructions on screen. And I want to ask each of the presenters to wave so you can remember their faces and projects. First, we have Shayne from the Data Provenance Initiative. Then we have Cullen from Spawning, Nataša from Imperial College London, and Michael Ronin-Wolf from Square. So you have less than 2 minutes to vote. Is the voting happening? Is anybody having any trouble voting? This is the nerve-wracking part. I know it's not easy. And someone will hand me an envelope when the voting is on. Yeah. Hopefully someone with very good handwriting will hand me an envelope. And as I told you, the winning project will get an invitation with all expenses paid to present at our flagship MozFest Global Conference next year. Still, location and date to be decided, but you already know who's coming. You will soon know who's the first confirmed speaker of this event in a matter of seconds. Just to confirm that everybody has voted. You can only vote once. No, we don't want any kind of interference. I want to say more about elections. I know it's a heated topic. I've been asked to say a countdown. Okay, we can do that right now. So we'll have the results ready in like 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So I'm going to announce the winner. I'm going to ask the winner to join me on stage, and I will hand this beautiful boarding pass. So the winner is Michael Ronin-Wolf from FAIR.
What do I say? Okay. Well, Thank you very much. This is greatly appreciated, and damn it, I'm trying to try to maintain my emotion. It really is just following in leaders like Tehiko Media, who are associated, and great partners and allies like the Common Voice Project, who I also depend upon for our research. And so, thank you, Mozilla, and for giving me this platform for this work.
You can take that, yeah. Let's see. Don't forget to check in. So, as you know, you already know the prize, and I want to thank our panel of experts for the valuable contributions to this project. And also, I want to thank the rest of the projects participating who did a great job presenting the project. I'm really excited to work with them. So, the last thing I would say is that the goal of the DFL Showcase is precisely to connect, to provide a public platform for these projects to meet you, to connect with the institutions that you represent, and our broader Mozilla community. So, as Mark said at the beginning, if there's a way you can think that you can collaborate with them, this is your opportunity. They'll be hanging around for a chat afterward. Building new platforms is not easy. Building alternative platforms to what's offered by big tech is really hard. So we think that your feedback and collective support are pivotal to the development and success of this project. So if you want to learn more about them, go find them. This is the second time that we are doing this live, and you can see this is very experimental. This is the first time I've done a countdown in my life. So if you have feedback for us, you can find us here, and we'll be happy to talk to you and see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. With this, we wrap up this amazing MozFest House 2024. But we still have one amazing concert, obviously, at 7:30 that starts. Yeah, I see people getting excited. Songs of the Living, it's in the club space. If you didn't get your registered thing, go get it now, because I'm not sure if they're there, but try. And before then, we have a special thank you for all of you for an amazing MozFest House 2024. So I would like to give the floor to Zena and Sahar.
Doing stage change in real time.
Test.
Go ahead.
It's good. It's working. Hello, everyone. My name is Tahir. I am the Global Engagement Manager for Mozilla Festival, which means that I lead the Wrangler program.
And I'm Zena Abiasi, and I'm the head of curation, which means I curate everything that happens on the main stage. And I... So this actually wraps up the panels, the sessions, the art installations, everything that we've experienced together the past 2 days is now officially over. MozFest isn't over, but the sessions are. And so it's really hard to wrap up what we've shared together in a few minutes and a few words. So I'm not going to attempt to do that. But I will say that we did experience a world of thought and emotion, from mycelium networks all the way to AI networks. And we just wanted to take a moment and thank you all and reflect with you all on that.
Yeah. So this was the cumulative brainchild of so many people and networks and communities that all co-created this, including yourselves. We started a few months ago with an overarching theme of solidarity. And in January, February, we created a cohort of Wranglers who really unpacked what that looked like. And what emerged from our first few meetings was, I don't know, like a 15-page, 3,000-word document of all sorts of disaggregated yet connected ideas about what solidarity and togetherness looks like in the context of trustworthy AI. And over the months that followed, the Wranglers co-created the sub-themes and brought forward over 190 facilitators who facilitated all of the sessions that we enjoyed, art installations, hip-hop dancing, yoga, meditation, all of that stuff. And then our Mozilla staff, allies, and partners also came up with the most creative ideas. Let's have a journalism corner where we talk about AI and journalism and really have those difficult conversations that aren't happening in this space. Let's have a mural outside of the venue. Let's have a hip-hop dance party at lunchtime in a garden. Let's have a birthday party for Foxy. Yeah.
Coming up.
And let's make sure that there's a place to restore, and let's call it a sanctuary. Yeah. One person told me today at lunch, Ima, I don't know if she's still here, she said that MozFest enabled her to feel the impact of tech with all of her senses. And I think that was such a beautiful way to articulate MozFest.
This has been a culmination of so many yes moments. And the past 6 months, the MozFest team has every day been saying yes. Yes to partners, to facilitators, to wranglers, to volunteers, just a lot of yes. And the past 2 days has been a lot of yes moments of going into unfamiliar spaces and unexpectedly coming out crying, of going in and being challenged about the realities of technology and how they impact our lives and someone else's life in a context we are so unfamiliar with. And yes to leaning into joy, into pain, into really hard spaces that are sort of blowing our minds out of proportion of what is going on in the world. And though this is regionally positioned in Europe, I think we went a little bit everywhere in the world today and the past 2 days together. And so we just want to extend a few thank yous before we head out and have a lot of drinks. So really what's between you and a lot of fun is the two of us and a really nice video that we would like to share with you.
Dankeschön.
Shukran.
Thank you.
Dankjewel.
I can say thank you. Thank you.
All right, so that was the first of a long list of thank yous that we're going to go through. We're going to start with our community, so our Wranglers and our Mozillians as well. Huge thank you to our community Wranglers who were distributed all across Europe. Jan, Bash, Casper, Samantha, Adeshino, Kirsty, Livy, Christophoris, Debbie, Christoph, Surabi, Bailey, and Ima. Our Mozilla staff Wranglers across the foundation and the corporation, Miguel, Katie, Mary, Tarandeep, Nicole, and Frida, thank you so much. Our amazing volunteers who made everything so seamless, our volunteer coordinators, Daisy, Harry, Paul, and Robbie, thank you so much. Oh, they're right there. Thank you. And the volunteers as well, our amazing cohort of volunteers who joined us from near and far to lend their time, their energy, their passion, their experience to make MozFest House the amazing event that it's been. Next, our InkDot teams, Sarah and Clara, who have been so amazing in working with our team on the facilitator support resources. Thank you so much. our collective care team who curated the Rest is Resistance Sanctuary and also other forms of supporting our communities during some of the very difficult conversations we've had over the last few days. Our collaborators in arms for many years from the Ethical Dilemma Cafe, specifically Ian from the BBC. And Todd, sorry.
Great. And I'm excited to also thank our partners who joined us a couple of months ago, and they were like, we want to do things with you all. So thank you for the Pulitzer Center, for coming along and bringing all your fellows and collaborating with us along the way. The Royal Shakespeare Company, the WAG Foundation, the City of Amsterdam. I mean, there's so many to name, but I'll just keep on moving because we need to get to drinks. And then I'm going to go through a quick list of all our colleagues who have activated the past couple of days here at MozFest. So the funder track, Lindsay, Amy, Kara, Lisa, thank you for hosting the biggest AI and philanthropy summit. The Ethical AI Datasets Workshop with the Insights team led by Kasha. The Fellowships and Awards team, I mean, thank you to Hanan, Mehan, Haley, Chennai, Katie. This team is our deep collaborators. We always work together at every MozFest. To the Mozilla Marketing and Communications team. Thank you to Audrey, Kevin, Tracy, Obi, Carly, and Shannon. Thank you for spreading the word about MozFest, for inviting everybody in here into the room. To the Mozilla Firefox team for setting up shop and MozFest, and to Foxy, who is celebrating 20th birthday with us this evening. Thank you to our legal team who help us navigate every corner, every challenge, to the tech platforms. Thank you to the Media Movement Project in Mozilla, and that's comprised of a couple of people across different teams who joined forces with Pulitzer to create the Journalism Corner mentioned earlier. Thank you to the Data Futures Lab. This is the second iteration of the showcase, and honestly, it just gets better every year. So I'd be really excited to see what happens next year. So congratulations, and so exciting that you're going to be joining us. With that, I'll pass to you.
Yeah. Also, so many of our team members from Mozilla who joined us from all different parts of the world, our facilitators, our dialogues and debate speakers and moderators, all of the commissioned artists for bringing your work here, all of the art installation hosts that helped us to understand the art, and also our keynote speaker, Mona Shalabi.
This is like really the final part of the list, I promise. I want to extend the deepest gratitude to our partners, our local production team, the B Agency. You're the most beautiful example of saying yes and also going 10 extra miles. And this beautiful creature that we've been living with the past 3 years is just a testament to just how fun it is to work with you as we curate and talk about and think about AI and its sort of like hard realities about it. So I also want to name you all really quickly. Thank you to Sander, Saskia, Yassine, Naomi, Kitty, Zifa, Jeroen, Anna, the photography, Emily. Thank you to Marcel, Arnaud, Flor, and the PR team, Leonard. And I'm sure I'm missing so many, but thank you so, so much to the AV team in the back who have just ran a gorgeous show on stage. Thank you to Toshi Regan and the Songs of the Living experience that we are about to experience. Thank you for Together and Dedicated for producing the show. There are partners from Rotterdam who are producing songs. To the guest artists who responded to the invitation to be part of the show. And to the choir, that's basically a local choir built by Toshi over a course of a couple of months. And you will you're about to step in and this will all make sense. And finally, I have, okay, well, let's see if we're not going to get emotional here. I have like the utmost honor to say thank you to the MozFest team, who has been the past 6 months just also saying yes every day to each other and to you all to make all of this happen. And I want to name you all: Stephanie Wright, Mark Walsh, Lucy Click, Stephen Hester, Tim Anua, and J. Bob Alota. I'm not done. That's not all of them. And to two of our colleagues who have been supporting from different places in the world to make things running online. To Eliana Peters and Arush Fatima, who aren't here with us here, but they are very much with us in every piece of MozFest. And of course, I want to say so much thank you to Seher here, my partner on the stage.
I want to say thank you to you.
No, stop it.
No.
For all you can see how much fun we have doing this. So it's kind of bittersweet to say this is a wrap on MozFest, but this is a wrap on MozFest House Amsterdam 2024. But please join us in the garden for drinks, for some cake, for some dancing with Foxy, and a little bit of a surprise as we transition from the garden into Songs of the Living. So thank you all again for joining us, and thank you all who joined as participants to attend all the sessions and engage in really thoughtful, meaningful ways with everyone. Go off and be merry. Goodbye.